I seem to be a bit an angle here. I don't know if it looks that way, or maybe just the way it seems to me, but I seem to be sloping a bit that way. So I haven't done a live video for some time, but what I'm wanting to do here is to maybe talk a little bit about where I have been. I'm doing a tour right now, and to actually talk about something a place I went to, and the video which it sort of more ideas came because of what I was doing. Sorry, I'm just not comfortable here. I've got a new computer, and it might be better if I put this over here. I don't know. I should have sorted this one out before I started. Hello, Mike. And no, we'll leave it. I will leave it where it is. I just won't be looking at the screen all the time. That's only I can suggest. So I'm going to. I've still got my computer in front of me, but it's a new computer. I've never used this one before whilst doing a live, and so that's where I can actually see the comments, because when you do it on the phone, you can't actually see the all the comments. You see the last 6 or 7 or something, but if several come through at the same time, then I just don't see them. Anyway, so I'm currently at a location which is approximately 2 kilometers from the Lithuanian border, so I'm still inside Poland. Now this is in the Suwałki region. I just saw something today. It said that the Suwałki Gap is not a place you probably wouldn't want to go to, and I was thinking, actually that's what they said. It was on a news program, and I was thinking, well, no, it's really very attractive, so I'm there right now. And so I have spent most of the last month though in former East Prussia, let's say. I'm in a place based in called Elk, which formerly was Lyck in German, L-Y-C-K. And I had been planning on doing a video on one Theodor Tolsdorff for some time. The reason for this was that in the late 1950s, there was a case of something called the Brettheim killings, which were committed by one SS General Max Simon, who hanged after a court-martial, 15th of April 1945. There had been somebody in this village of Brettheim, which is in northern Bavaria. He decided that there was a group of Hitler Youth, and the Hitler Youth decided that it had been ordered to go to Brettheim to defend the village, and they had, I think, 2 Panzerfaust between them. There was one person at the local dairy, so they were up to, so a bit of a hothead maybe, and he got the Panzerfaust, threw them into the river, and sent the kids off home. And anyway, so the SS Max Simon found out about it. A drumhead court-martial, sentenced him to death. Then the mayor refused to kill him, and so he had the mayor and another person killed as well, hanged. Now earlier he'd also shot a Volkssturm man. The Volkssturm man had been on the Eastern Front, somewhere near Frankfurt. He'd been injured in the First World War, and he had problems with his feet, and he'd come back to Rottenburg, and he'd been captured at home. He didn't try to hide or anything like that, and they shot him against the 70 wall. I did separate videos on both of these incidents. And now another incident which was in the news, so in the late 50s, was that of Theodor Tolsdorff, and it's him really I'm going to talk about now. The youngest general in the Wehrmacht, only 35 years old when the war ended. I did a sort of a quick video, and I said in this other quick video he probably spent more time in hospital than he did at the front, because he was wounded several times. Anyway, I'll talk to about, before I do that though, I'd like to actually show you the sort of what places look like. So if I was talking about these other places at Brettheim, I went to Brettheim and I filmed the place where these effectively the murders took place at the cemetery. So I went to the cemetery, the trees. I filmed filmed the trees. I filmed the pond where the Panzerfaust had been thrown into. I filmed the place where the barricade had been set up and the Panzerfaust were supposed to take these positions. I filmed this cemetery in Rottenburg where the killing of the Voltstone man took place, and they showed the exact location. And because I like to do this to actually give you sort of a bit of value added inside of what I do, I want to go to the ancestral home of the Toltoff family. So I went to a place from Olecko. I went to Olecko, which was formerly called Marggrabowa because it was founded by, or the property of, the Margrave of Brandenburg, and so that's how it got its name. In 1920 there was a referendum in the part of East Prussia, which voted overwhelmingly to stay as part of Poland, so it got the name Treuberg, the loyal town, which was given to in Weimar days. This is before Hitler came along. Anyway, so I was there, and they've got this very interesting war memorial there. It's like the Hindenburg Memorial, the one at Olsztynek, Hohenstein, which was destroyed. Anyway, in 1945, so this is now the biggest sort of Tannenberg Memorial in existence. And so then I went from there. I went up to see the house of the Tolsdorff family. Now the first one was an absolute ruin. Just walking into it was quite curious. So I had my camera out and I was walking around with the camera in my hand, got through these ruins. I'm trying to watch where I'm putting my feet as well. I went in without because normally you would protect some kind of protection on me, some protective clothing, maybe not necessarily hard hat, but I should have that. Anyway, I disturbed this fox as I was walking around. The fox though looked at me as if to say, "What are you doing?" He didn't run away that quickly, just sort of stood there looking at me. And anyway, so this place a complete ruin, which I was expecting. But then I went round to the place where Theodor Tolsdorff was born, and it's quite amazing. It is being repaired. It has been repaired, sorry, and it's now there's a museum there. It's one of the largest museums of private cars in Poland. Sorry, it's one of the largest private car collections in Poland. That's what I should say. So it's a huge selection of vehicles dating from the 1930s. And the manor house has been done up really nicely. You've got these big buildings, support buildings, would have been the barn, the distillery, and things of this nature. They're now housing the museum, and you can even stay there. So it's on booking.com, and I'll give a link to that as well, because I thought it was really nice. And the owner actually showed me around, showed me the work that's been done on the manor house, which I thought was absolutely myself quite outstanding. So this is in a place called Lenarty, is where the ancestral home of the Tolstoff family was, and the place where the Theodor Tolsdorff was born, which is, well, I walked from one place to the other. It's 3 kilometers away. So that's Biała Olecka. And so I thought it was a superbly interesting day for me. And so the thing about the East Prussia, and it's not just East Prussia actually, it's all the lands to the east of the Elbe. These were lands of major land holdings. So the latifundio, to use the Spanish word. So you'd have lots of peasants working on the ground, on the fields, who weren't particularly wealthy, and you'd have big wealthy landowning families. Indeed, it was these landowning families which to a large extent were responsible for bringing Hitler to power. That's in the Eastern Aid scandal, of which I've also done a video. So this is the sort of thing that Theodor Tolsdorff was born into. Now I can recall when I was at school, there was one of the teachers that said about the landowning classes made with all the army officers, because when they sort of looked at all this land they owned, they all had an incredible sense of confidence, and it's confidence which is important to be an army officer. And you've always got to be confident in what you're doing. So, and this is this land owning class, they had the confidence, and that's possibly why they made up the more than their fair share of army officers are from the land from East Prussia. Now, as far as Theodor Tolsdorff was concerned, he was born in 1900, First World War, and so he grew up enjoying the benefits. So I know there were, in the late 20s, there were a number of problems with the agricultural sector in Germany. Prices actually dropped quite considerably, and they were having difficulties with covering their costs, and this is why a number of landholdings actually went bankrupt, which is part of the reason why this Eastern aid was given, which effectively propelled Hitler into power. But the thing was this, that he was meant to be a farmer, but he joined the army. Germany did have an army. The Treaty of Versailles allowed 100,000 men in the army and 15,000 men in the navy. It had lots of stuff which was banned, such as aircraft and tanks and heaviest artillery. And it was not allowed to have conscription. However, when Hitler came to power, he was appointed to power within a few days. So he was appointed on 30th of January, and so on 3rd of February 1933, he had a meeting with the higher staff of the army, and he said he was going to reintroduce conscription. He said that it took him 2 years to do it, but he did it. And so that was the conscription was introduced in March 1935. Theodor Tolsdorff joined the army on the 1st of October 1934 as a private, and I think that there's something, it's rather strange, because he actually, when he joined up, it was the same day as the regiment was actually created, and I think that I think that there could be, the two things are somehow linked. He happened to join up on the very first day. He was then he was almost 25 years old, so he wasn't exactly it must have been quite old, really. Now, one thing that the Nazis actually did was they had something called supplementary units. So you had this group of men who were too young to have been in the First World War, but under normal circumstances they were too old to be conscripted. So the people who were born, say, for example, between, well, let's say 1902 to about 1913, something along those lines. And so they made these people were gradually conscripted into the army by giving 2 or 3 months additional training, whereas other people would be in there to do their they'd be there to do their normal military service, but then during the war they'd be conscripted for a unspecified amount of time. Anyway, so Tolsdorff, he was commissioned after 2 years. He became a second lieutenant, then a lieutenant. Okay, it's slightly different in the German army, but using the British ranking systems. He was part of a unit which was a it was an East Prussian unit, so it was an infantry or group from Königsberg. Sorry. Nothing in there. Got some water, a little bit here. So the war breaks out on the 1st of September, and he is his unit is assigned to attack south. So it attacks south from the area of what's today Nijitsa, then Niedenberg, and from there it heads to Ostrowenka. Then advances to the east of Warsaw, reaches the Vistula River in a sort of a curving movement like that, which is designed to cut off the Polish capital, and reaches the Vistula Dęblin, which is halfway between Warsaw and Lublin, more or less. And however, he got wounded for the first time. He won both classes of the Iron Cross, and then he ended up in hospital. So when his unit was, after the fall of Poland, transferred to the west, he was still actually in hospital. In the Western campaign, he was initially assigned to guard the border in the region of Aachen, where he would incidentally be back there 5 years later. there's the initial campaign, which was the first part of the campaign, which ended up in the British and French to a certain extent leaving at Dunkirk. And then the second part of the campaign was to defeat the remainder of France. So in the first part of the campaign, he was in Belgium, and the second part, he got wounded again. And his old wound opened up, and once more he had to go back to hospital. His unit was then transferred back to East Prussia. Once he got out of hospital, he went back. So after the invasion of the Soviet Union, he takes part in that. He goes through the Baltic states, and November 1941, he gets wounded again. This was quite serious. He spent a few months in hospital. On the 1st December of 1941, he was promoted to being a captain. So on the 20th of April 1942, he was well enough to return to his unit. However, he didn't stay well for long. South of Schlüsselburg, near Leningrad, he lost part of his right foot, sent back to hospital, and then once obviously his foot didn't grow again, but he was sufficiently well to actually come back. And he got involved in the fighting on the Volkhov River. The Volkhov is a river which flows into Lake Ladoga, so it's to the south east of Leningrad. And along the Volkhov, the Red Army tried to relieve Leningrad by opening up a channel into the city. Anyway, so there was a number of attacks along this. Anyway, particularly in 1942. So, and this is very bitter fighting, and this was like a meat grinder in many ways. Like in Reserve, was another place like a meat grinder. It wasn't these really fast advances which you saw in the south. It was there on the 26th of August 1942, he had to take over command of the entire battalion. However, he got wounded yet again by a shot to the head, and so he was once more in hospital. And the thing is, obviously in the winter 42-43, things were pretty desperate for the Germans, and so he was allowed out. 1st of January 1943, takes over another, promoted to major, takes over another unit. And during the third battle of Lake Ladoga on the 22nd of July to the 22nd of August 1943, he was awarded for his service during this battle. Sorry, he was awarded the Knight's Cross, and there's a photograph of him getting the Knight's Cross from Hitler on the 15th of September of that year in 43. And ironically enough, as he was meeting Hitler at the Wolf's Lair on that very day, the Soviets attacked again and in the same place and tried to force a breakthrough. And anyway, so on the 1st of November 1943, he was posted to Ukraine. 1st November 1943, yes. And then this was another unfortunate incident for him, because if he'd stayed where he was, the front sort of quietened down there. But their major Soviet offensive occurred because they'd captured Kyiv earlier. And 24th December 1943, the Soviets attacked, and they reached the former Polish border within just over a week. And so he was in the Vinnytsia area, and once again he gets shot. This time he gets shot in the stomach. He was in and he is in hospital until the 1st of April 1944, and then he's promoted to lieutenant colonel. So clearly he'd been injured several times. He'd been injured quite seriously 3 times, and so therefore they thought, well, perhaps we ought to we're going to lose him, so well, maybe we ought to make the most of him while we can. We'll send him off to be a teacher. They sent him off to Metz, to a Fahrenjunkerschule, so to train young officers and as a tactics instructor. However, he can't have been there very long, because on the 1st of July 1944, as Operation Bagration gets underway, he's sent off to Lithuania to take command of a unit there. not so far from his ancestral home. And by this time, the Polish city of Vilna, then now it's a capital of Lithuania, Vilnius, was surrounded, and there was approximately 4,000 Germans in the town, in the city. The Polish Home Army was attacking inside the city and outside, and they wanted to liberate Vilnius before the Soviets got there as part of what was called Operation Tempest. So there was the Soviets were coming in, and so the Germans were having to fight both sides. Tolstoff formed a defensive circle, and then this allowed the people inside the town to pull themselves out. So he got 3,000 of these paratroopers out of Vilnius, and thus saved them. And then Vilnius was lost, but the people actually saved. And in the general response, he for this was referred to as the Lion of Vilna. He got the Knight's Cross with the oak leaves and swords on the 18th of July 1944, and he was promoted to colonel. So the general from Vilnius was then actually sent to Warsaw. Once more, he found himself here. They'd be given a breathing space. So after this, he was sent off to Jelenia Góra, or then called Hirschberg, today's Jelenia Góra in Poland, and there he was participated in divisional commander's course. So he had to learn how to be a divisional commander. On the 1st of September 1944, he was given the task of forming the 340th Volksgrenadier Division. And then this was sent off to the Aachen-Jülich region, which is in western Germany. So you've traveled through Belgium on the motorway. The first two is Aachen-Jülich. I always used to buy fuel in Jülich, so that's how I know this place. And then he became a part of the 5th Panzer Army, which attacked in the Battle of the Bulge. It got as far as Bastogne, couldn't get any further, and then his unit got shot up, and he had to retreat back. On the 30th of January 1945, Tolsdorff was promoted to Major General. 16th of March 1945 to Lieutenant General. He was thus the youngest commanding Lieutenant General in the German army, and at the same time he was also awarded the Knight's Cross with oak leaf swords and diamonds. Now, on the 1st of April 1945, he assumed command of the 82nd Army Corps in Bavaria. And on the 30th of April 1945, Hitler committed suicide around the same time as Munich surrendered to the Americans. And I have film on my channel of this. You can see people in the streets quite happy that they're to be liberated in Munich. On the same time that Tolstoff's unit is pulling out in an easterly on southeasterly direction, and they get to a place called Eisenarz, which is near Traunstein, and the military believed that for whatever reason that they had to defend this village. So 3rd of May 1945, there's snow on the ground, fog, and so the American fighter planes can't actually, because of the mountainous area, they can't really fight too low, so there's a bit of cover. Tolsdorff digs in Eisenarz with 4 88mm guns. That's quite powerful weapons, but when you've got the entire American army bearing down on you, there's not a lot you can do. For some reason, Albert Kesselring told him to hold Eisenarz at all costs. I mean, which seems a bit ridiculous in the circumstances. Anyway, one person who thought this was absolutely ridiculous was Captain Francis Xavier Holtze. And he was born in 1885. He was a decorated First World War veteran. I think he was there in Eisenarz because he was being injured. It's not clear to me at all why he was there on that day, because I think he'd been injured, because there were 1,200 people in the hospital there, and so what he could see what was likely to happen, similar to the situation that was happening at Brettheim, to avoid where the defense of the city, defense of the village, ended up with the village being completely being destroyed. In the case of Eisenarz, he tried to stop the destruction, and he did this by putting a Red Cross flag. Tolsdorff found out about the flag. He convened a court-martial. He sentenced Holze, who was then nearly 60 years old, to death, and the sentence was to be carried out immediately. The firing squad, now there's nothing, it's not quite clear. Did they actually shoot and deliberately miss, or did they refuse? It's not clear to me what happened, but it was either one or the other. Anyway, Tolsdorff sees what happens. He draws his own weapon and shoots the victim, Franz Xaver Holze, dead. And 2 hours later, the Americans entered the village without any shelling, without any bombardment, and nobody was hurt. So effectively, Captain Holze gave his life, but he might have saved 1,200 lives of people who were there. And today he's remembered by, there's a street with his name. Indeed, when it was the 70th anniversary, there was a commemoration for him in the village. As far as Tolsdorff was concerned, well, 5 days later he realized the game was up, and he decided to surrender to the Americans. He went to a POW camp, didn't do anything wrong. 2 years and 1 day later, he was released. But then what's he do? He's 37 years old. If he goes into the job centre, they say to him, what did you do? Well, I used to be a farmer. My family owns a lot of land. Where is it? Well, it's in East Prussia, and the communists have got it now. And it's now a collective farm. Yes, well, I don't think I can do that. What else did you do? I used to be a lieutenant general in the Wehrmacht. Well, I don't think I can do that anymore. But fortunately, his wife, who was 12 years younger than he had a father, and the father had a forwarding business. He had a lorry, so he got a job working for his father-in-law. And he also, because times were tough then, there wasn't much to do, he got a job as a bus driver. He got various other small jobs as well. And in the meantime, though, he also had problems with the law. In 1956, he was put on trial for the first time. And the reason he was put on trial, and this is quite ironic, is because there was somebody called Ernst von Salomon. And you may have heard, if you know anything about the 1920s, he was certainly involved in murders from the nationalist right. But anyway, he was a playwright. I think he also did films as well. I'm not certain about that. But anyway, he wrote this book called The Questionnaire. And the questionnaire is the denazification proceeding. And so he's attacking the denazification proceedings of the Americans in the American zone of occupied Germany, but deals with the case of what happened on that day in the Tolstoff killing, and this brings it to light, and this brings it to public attention. Now, it may seem quite because Tolstoff, who'd had this war which had been quite honourable and quite brave and successful. I hope you know what I mean. He'd had a war which had he'd been wounded several times. Nothing bad it'd be said about him. And then he has this one incident where where a person's killed. I mean, obviously, I do feel for the person that gets killed. But you've got Ernst von Salomon, who was a Nazi well, not just a Nazi, it's not the right word, but he was a right-wing terrorist, nationalist terrorist in the 1920s. And it's him who doesn't get punished, but it's Tolstoff that does. Anyway, Tolstoff was put on trial. He gets 3.5 years imprisonment for manslaughter, but he goes to appeal. And when it goes as high as the Federal Court of Justice, and on 24th of June 1960, the case is overturned, and he is acquitted. Much to protests in the town of Traunstein, where the killing had taken place. Now, there is the case of the SS generals Max Simon, which I mentioned earlier. That got a lot of publicity, and the two things were actually linked. And with Max Simon, he was sentenced to death in absentia in Italy. It was 2 mass killings he was involved in there, and not to mention other things in the Soviet Union. In the case with Tolsdorff, it was different, because the killing of Captain Franz Xaver Holze didn't fit into a pattern, and indeed there was a sort of there was the law, which is called undermining military strength. It is that I have mentioned in the past that nobody was ever forced to do a killing. So it's an excuse that was used. Well, I thought if I didn't kill them, they would kill me. But there's no evidence of that ever happening. On the other hand, if you said try to persuade your fellows not to do a killing, that was undermining military strength. For that, you could be executed. But you could say no if you didn't want to, and nothing would happen to you. I hope that difference is actually that's actually clear. In the case of what Tolsdorff did, he assumed that Franz Xaver Holze had undermined military strength, and that is the reason for why he said he had him executed. Anyway, so in Eisenarz there is a Holzestrasse, and should I be there? I have been there, but I wasn't aware of this story at the time, and so I shall obviously go there. Now, the Tolstoff, he had his wife, his family had this business. They had 2 children. First child died in 1957, and the older son still alive, I think. He was a doctor in Bad Honnef, and he retired a number of years ago. So Theodor Tolsdorff died in Dortmund 25th of May 1978, and he was 68 years old, and his wife died in 1996. Anyway, so that gives a rough overview of the youngest general in the German army. Sorry, it's raining here right now. I hope that that's not put anyone off. Anyway, good. So if you want to, if you've got any questions or anything, you can ask them now. It doesn't have to be on this subject. But looking down the list, so hello to everybody who actually joined. It occurred to me this morning that I could actually do a live rather than put a video up. So the video which was going up tonight is now going up beginning of next month, which was on the young Hans Frank. It's only a 3-minute video. It's not a very long one. So anyway, good. So thanks for watching. Thanks for being with me. I'm currently, as I say, in northeastern Poland. I've done quite a lot of videos from this area. And actually, I prepared things. I've been wanting to go to Estonia, well, I have to go to Lithuania and Latvia to get to Estonia. But I don't think I'm going there now. So lack of time. But anyway, I'm trying, maybe I'll do that next year. Anyway, as you can hear, it's raining here in Poland. It's only 11 degrees outside right now, although it was absolutely roasting a couple of days ago. For the moment, from me, thanks for watching, and bye for now.